In today's business world, being an average CEO is no longer an option. That's why we're committed to equipping you with the resources and the tactics necessary to not just survive, but to thrive. You're listening to Not Your Average CEO Lifeline podcast, where we are more than just a voice in the crowd.
All right, Scott, thank you so much for being here with us today. We're really happy to have you. And I'd love to start out just by hearing from you a little bit about your story, how you got where you are today. I think our audience would love to hear that.
Sure, no problem. So I've been an entrepreneur all my life. Started as soon as I got out of college, and I had this definition of success, which was to exceed my parents' expectations. And we came from a lower middle class background, and I thought that meant then that I needed to achieve financially, like make more money, buy nicer things, bigger houses, cooler boats, nice car, all of that kind of stuff. And for a long time, I really thought that that's what success looked like. With that, I grew up. So I'm 65 years old. So I grew up in an older generation that had this command and control presence. The boss said something, you did it just the way it was. You got to work before the boss. You didn't leave till after he left. It was just, that's the way we grew up. And actually, in my first couple of businesses, that's the way I ran my business as well. I thought I was this really generous, cool boss that did things for people and tried to make them learn and grow and do all those kind of things. But that was the key. I made them do that, not allowed them to do that. And there was just a huge difference between those two things. About the time I turned 50, I got into a few different organizations that led me to see the world a little bit different. Actually got me to change my presence. It got me to change the way that I looked at and defined success. And success has more to do with people than it does things. So I have this line that says, people are more important than things. Now, that doesn't mean I don't like nice things, too. I still like to get the nice things, and I still like
the boats and everything, right?
And all of that. But what I started learning, and it took a while to get to that spot, to go from this command and control leader to something that we call a much more transformational style. And in fact, I took it a bit further and called it a principled leadership style. And my principled leadership put 3 words in place. And these words came to me from one of the organizations that I was, it was this vision or whatever you might say, but there were 3 words that kept popping up in my mind. And that was humility, empathy, and vulnerability. Things that I didn't grow up with, things that I didn't know anything about, but I came to find out that they were powerful tools, powerful ways of living. Humility it's not being the typical sense of humble. Oh no, please don't issue me any praise. It wasn't that at all. Humility to me was the recognition that every human being has value and that I can learn something from anybody.
Yes.
So just because I have this status or this thought process that I might be the smartest guy in the room doesn't mean that person down there, that person in another stage of life doesn't have something that they can teach me.
Absolutely. I think everything you shared was really interesting. I'd like to go back to the command and control leadership,
Sure.
Because I've seen that happen. I've seen that leadership style, and there is something to be said for it in that they run a tight ship and things are moving along and working,
Mm-hmm.
like you said.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's performing. And so I do see some CEOs still rely on that.
A lot of them.
But I know, as you said, there's a lot of drawbacks to that too. So can you talk about, even though that might work for productivity and people are doing what they're supposed to do, what are the drawbacks of that and why we shouldn't do that?
So it's short-term thinking, right? It does get things done. Mm-hmm. And in fact, what I've learned is that if I answer somebody's question, they will get it done my way faster than if I sat there and had a debate about it. But what it's not doing, and the drawback to that, is that I'm not helping people learn and grow. So I implemented something in my organization that was a little bit different than most folks, because people would come into my office and say, hey, Scott, we got a problem, and tell me about the problem. What do you think we ought to do? And I used to just answer their question because it's efficient and it gets done. And what I changed to is that my first response was, what do you think we ought to do? Because I want people to think. right? And they'd always inevitably they'd come back and say, I don't know, that's why I came to you. And then I'd push back even further and say, great, when you come up with an idea, come on back and let's talk about it, right? Because I want to get into that debate right now because I want people to learn and grow. Now, where the command and control approach still works and it's necessary is in times of crisis or when time is of the essence. If the building is burning, we do not have time to form a committee and have a meeting. We need to get something done, and command and control is still the appropriate tool to use at that point. Why it's not appropriate, because it's short-term thinking and not long-term thinking. What it does is it keeps people dependent upon me and instead of allowing me to be freed up to go do things that are at a different level. Organizational planning, vision kind of options and
higher level type of things.
In culture. And I think that's a big deal for the CEOs to recognize is culture. And I don't want my culture dependent upon me. I want to be able to elevate and lift folks so that they don't need me anymore. That doesn't eliminate me, it raises me, right? And I shouldn't be afraid about people being smarter than me. It should be okay. Yeah. The other problem with the command and control style is that it limits the organization to just what I know. And we all have blinders on. We can't see these things way over here, and we can't see things way over there, and other people can. And if I allow them to bring that to the table, we have an option for us to get better, for the organization to get better. If we're just dependent upon my ideas, we're only going to be as smart as me. And I also have another line that I say that we are smarter than me.
Oh, I love that too.
Participate, right? But
I love all these nuggets. Speaking of which, I wanted to go back to another little nugget that you gave. You had talked about the leadership triad, and I believe you said humility, empathy, and vulnerability.
Yeah.
And I love those words. I love those traits. I love to hear why those specific things are essential for high performing teams, because I think when we think of high performing teams, we're not necessarily thinking of humility or vulnerability. That wouldn't initially come to mind, but I know you have many decades of experience, and I'd love to hear.
Yeah. So I kind of explained humility already, and that is the thought process that we can learn something from everybody, and we need to give everybody a chance. And this came to me because of a situation that we had in our own family. I had a son that had issues with addiction, and he was living on the streets. And that boy taught me things. It was amazing when I would allow for it, right? So that humility transfers to everybody. Think about this. Who should be buying the broom? Who knows the broom? The janitor or the CEO? Why should I be making that decision? This is the guy or person who needs to use the tool, right? Let's get their input. What's the best way to sweep that floor? And that's an extreme case, right? So that's humility. Empathy is a little bit different. Empathy is not sympathy. It's not feeling sorry for people, but it's trying to understand people as much as I can, but from their point of view. I will never fully understand because I don't have their experience. I don't have their background. I don't even have their consequences, the consequences for whatever that happened to people. So I may not fully get that, but doing the best I can to understand them from their point of view. And that might be the strongest position that I can take in order to build relationships. The more I show care and concern for your point of view, even if I don't agree with it, but to understand you, the closer I can draw you in to me. And that's what true leadership is. And the third one might be the most controversial, humility.
I like that.
Especially for white men from my generation. Like no way, you're not going to be vulnerable, right? You're vulnerable. People will step on your neck so that they can get 6 inches taller. That's what vulnerability meant to me growing up. But what I found was vulnerability, being vulnerable, is the most attractive quality I can have. Doesn't make me any better looking, not that kind of attractive, but it attracts people to me. Give you a quick example. I can go, Danielle, I could use a little help. I'm being vulnerable. I could use a little help. What do? Do you say, oh, no, I'm staying away from that dude? Or what can I do to help? Right? It draws people to me when I show a little bit of vulnerability. Now, Brene Brown talks about being vulnerable, but having some limits, right? You just can't spill your guts the first time you meet somebody and just, expose everything. That doesn't work. It feels creepy. But by being a little bit more vulnerable each time that I'm meeting with you, the closer you're going to want to be to me, right? Which, again, leadership, like follow me, lead me, those sorts of things. So those three traits that are not in traditional leadership models, some of them are a little bit here and there, but a little bit different. But in this principled leadership model that we talk about, does a couple things. One, it allows people to want to be where I am, come with me, be around me, and all that. And two, and which helps my organization, no question. But here's the real kicker: is it made me a better human being. It was better for me.
Personally.
Yeah. Both personally and professionally.
And professionally.
I teach and work with people, certainly help the business, but they help the personal life as well. And why? Why is that? Because they work with your people at work, and then your people at home. What was the common? They're just people. We're just dealing with people, right? And if these techniques are going to work at home, they're going to work in the office. And if they're going to work in the office, they're going to work at home or in my neighborhood or wherever I happen to be. So I find that in the past 15 years, as I've gone through this growth stage, that I have become a better human being, a better leader, driving better organizations at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I think I can just see how that would make such a difference in having more freedom in your business, less reliance on you, less operational stress, just creating a more valuable operation.
And lifting others up, right?
Yes.
One of the things that I tell some folks, and this happens with COOs a lot, right? The CEO's got this vision, but the COOs are driving the work to get done. And they're doing things themselves because it's faster for them to do it than it is to, teach other people how to do it. And sure, we need to train folks for the good of the organization. But when I ask most CEOs this question, or COOs this question, do you want to keep your people small? Because that's exactly what you're doing. No, I like people. I want them to grow. Well, you're keeping them small by doing the work for them. If that's what you want, cool, keep doing what you're doing. If it's not what you want, there's a better way.
And your work is to show people the better way.
Well, at least from my position, at least how I see what a better way is. I get lots of folks that push back, and I actually had one client, worked with them for about 4 or 5 months, and he finally looked at me and goes, "I want the old Scott back." He was wanting me to kick ass and make his people do the things that he couldn't make them do and all that. And I just looked at him and said, "No, you don't. That's not what you want. This approach might take a little longer. Like, I can get things done. I still have the ability to get things done, certainly.
Sure.
In my command and control style. And this approach might take a little longer, but it lasts longer as well."
It'll last longer.
Yep.
That's very true. One thing that I love is practical actions. And I think that you would have a lot to share. And I'd love to hear just, one practical action step, one thing a CEO can do this week to start on that track, getting more trust in their organization. And I just love to hear what
let's do that, right? And it's a very simple technique. And it's something that I like. When I'm coaching people, what I tell them is that no matter what you tell me, no matter what the problems are, pointing fingers like this, that, it is 100% on you to solve what you can solve, right? Doesn't mean you have to fix everything, but you're going to solve that. And I do that by asking them this question: no matter what they tell me, how wrong somebody else is, right? The question is, what's your part in this? So that's the practical application. And there's always something. There's always something I could have done different. I could have adjusted the way that I approach things. I could have said things differently. Asking them the question, what's your part in this? And then getting them to start internalizing and doing that when they're complaining about this person or that guy or that gal or whatever, right? Stop. What's my part in this? What could I be doing differently to get the outcome that I want? Right? What's my part in this? So right there, rather than pointing fingers outward, look inward first. Now, sure, the other people have all kinds of things they need to do as well. I get that. Starts here. Starts with me.
I love that. That is terrific advice. So one last question for you. The name of our podcast is Not Your Average CEO, which is why we brought you on. We thought that you definitely embodied that. I'd love to hear what that means to you when you hear that.
What it means to me, I think, the first thing, I think I said this a little earlier as well, kind of in a different context, but it is I'm not the average CEO because what I've done is that I've changed my definition of what success means. I guess that's what it is. Like, I'm not looking at quarterly results and only financial statements and only that, but I'm looking holistically at the organization, my part in that, and the world at large to say, and again, I didn't get to this till I got a little bit older, right? And starting to see what am I leaving into the world. So my definition of success now is completely different, and it is who is around me, why they're around me, and I don't want them there just for advice or because I can provide them a job or money or candy or toys or whatever. I want people to be around because they want to, because how they feel when they're around me. If I get a group of people that are there because they want to be instead of have to be, I've won. I feel better. That's my definition of success. Now, with that, and if I build my organization that way too, I'm going to get all the financial success that I wanted all my life too. Because now I'm inspiring people instead of motivating them. And I think there's a difference between those two things. I can motivate you really easily with the carrots and sticks, right? I can pay you a little bit more to go do this thing or beat you with a broomstick if you're not going to do that thing, and you'll do the thing. But as soon as that incentive is gone, you won't be doing that thing. Whereas inspiration is if we can create that within you, like coming from out with you, with the joy of getting it done, with the joy of building something, creating something, doing something. I don't need to manage you anymore. I just don't. You're going to do the thing, and we're all going to benefit from that. So I like to inspire rather than to motivate.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Scott. And we'll include this in the show notes, but can you tell the audience where they can find you, where they can learn more about you and your work? Sure.
We have a website. It's lead2goals.com. That's LEAD, the number 2, goals, GOALS.com. And there's lots of tools on that website. So we have these quizzes that you can take that you can show how you rate here versus there. And we have a lot of ebooks, a lot of free material as well, videos, all kinds of things on there. So it's a really nice resource. And that's probably the best way. You can also get a hold of me by email, and I answer every email. It's scott@lead2goals.com. And if you have a question, go ahead and send it. We'll talk. I love hanging out with people.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Scott. And we really appreciate having you on today. And we learned a lot, and I can't wait for the audience to hear it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate being here.
You've been listening to Not Your Average CEO Lifeline with your hosts Danielle Cuomo, CEO, and Nicole Glitchio, Els, COO. This podcast has been sponsored by Virtual Assist USA. If you'd like to know more about the hosts or exploring virtual assistant services, visit virtualassistusa.com for more information.